In this video, we're going to be looking at ideas around consumer rights and the legislation that surrounds those rights in the UK. When we're thinking about legislation, all of this is set up to protect consumers. So a number of different laws combine to best protect the consumer when buying goods or services. This means that organisations must incorporate all of this relevant legislation into any customer service policies and any processes that they make as an organisation. Also, they must inform consumers of their statutory rights. So these rights are the ones that are set out by legislation, so they're enshrined in law. And we're going to take a look at the different legislations that bring those together. Firstly, we've got the Sale of Goods Act, also the Supply of Goods and Services Act, the Unsolicited Goods and Services Act, Trade Descriptions, and finally Consumer Protection. There are a set of other regulations that are in force around consumer rights that it's good to know about. So those will be consumer protection regulations under distance selling, things to avoid unfair terms in consumer contracts, and also the sale and supply of goods to consumers. And related legislation that we've already been looking at in previous videos, Data Protection Act, the Health and Safety and Work Act, and also the Equality Act. All of these relate to how organisations need to best protect the rights of consumers and customers. Starting with the Sale of Goods Act, this states that goods must be, as described, must be fit for purpose and must be of a satisfactory quality. If they're not, then customers can request a refund, a repair, or a replacement. So this is the very straightforward Sale of Goods Act that we're most commonly using. In the Supply of Goods and Services Act, it states that services that are provided by professionals and tradespeople must be carried out with reasonable skill and care, must again be as described, must be fit for purpose, of a satisfactory quality, and provided within a reasonable time and for a reasonable cost. When these services are provided, if they don't meet those criteria, then customers can again claim a refund, a repair, a replacement, but also compensation against any kind of loss or any harm that they've suffered from that supply of goods or services. In the Unsolicited Goods and Services Act, this sets out a set of rules that protect consumers from goods or services that they didn't order. So it says how you cannot be charged for goods that you didn't order or request. So this is often known as aggressive selling, when things are sent to you and then maybe a bill is sent afterwards, so a demand for payment. Also, as a consumer, you're under no obligation to return those unsolicited goods to the trader. So you don't have to pay to resend them. You don't have to actually give them back at all. And traders can't send you a substitute item unless the customer has agreed beforehand. So if you're ordering your shopping online, for example, the only time that you'll get substitutions is if you've ticked a little box to say, I agree for things to be substituted. Otherwise, you'll just have missing items in your order if they're not available. Under the Trade Descriptions Act, there's a set of regulations here that prohibit the false description of goods offered for supply by any individual or any organisation. This means that if you're giving false descriptions about who made something or where it was made, so a good example of this would be fake designer handbags, for example. If you're selling them as though they are that designer's brand, then you're giving a false description of those goods. Also, this covers all different types of description. So whether it's verbal, like a spoken description, whether it's in writing, advertising, or any kind of packaging or labelling, or even just the implication that that is the case. The Consumer Protection Act protects consumers from products that don't reach a reasonable level of safety. So if consumers find that a product that they have bought is causing harm or injury, then they would be entitled to compensation. And this prevents traders also from giving misleading prices for goods and services. The Data Protection Act protects consumers by maintaining the security and the confidentiality of their details. So it lays down principles for handling personal information. And you could go and have a look at the Data Protection Act video if you wanted to have a little refresher on how all of that works. The Health and Safety at Work Act, again, is protecting consumers by maintaining the safety of that customer environment. So it's up to any organisation or any trader to identify and resolve any risks or hazards that will prevent customers from injury or harm, just like they would for those who work in that workplace. Again, the Equality Act legally protects all people, including consumers, from discrimination in the workplace and in wider society. You'll remember that this can be direct or indirect discrimination, and we're often thinking about it in organisations in terms of things like disabled access or offering information in audio or braille formats, for example, for people with visual impairments. Or it may be that you need to allow guide dogs into your organisation or your venue to make sure that you're not indirectly discriminating against those, again, with visual impairments. Hopefully now you'll have a good understanding of all of the different pieces of legislation in the UK that contribute together to setting up a consumer's statutory rights. So these are the rights that are enshrined for them by law in this country.